What up? What up? It's the man Sean P coming in live. I have a very special guest today on today's Sitting with the Griots podcast. I am your host, independent published Sean P, public speaker, host of Literacy and Libations, amongst other things. And I am joined with a very, very special guest for the second time. I love returning guests. We got my sister Tatiana Obey in the building. How you feeling?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Tatiana Obey, don't forget the last
OB,
name. It's
OB,
pronounced
OB.
differently than it's
Yeah,
spelled.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yes, I am a fantasy author. I write badass characters slaying dragons, and I just love writing kind of like just black, especially black women out doing their thing in the fantasy genre. Simply because growing up, I didn't see that very much, and I didn't see that very often. And I also personally love martial arts. I love action. I love fighting. And just to bring those two loves together into this genre that I love is definitely kind of just my mission.
I love it. I love it. Let me give you an official introduction, right? Today I am joined by the brilliant Tatiana, author of Sister Samurai and now Return of Sister Samurai, a bold genre bending story where black girls wield blades and channel power through talisman, take center stage in worlds made just for them. She's not just writing books, she's building legacies. Let's dive into the mind behind the magic. I got my sister, Tatiana.
Aw, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I
Yes,
love a bit.
ma'am. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this is your second time around with the return of Sister Samurai. My first question is, it's not really a soft book. You got a lot of books. Matter by the way, I got the Bone to the Winds
Oh
with me right
yeah.
there. See that beautiful cover, right?
Yeah,
But
my first book.
your second book in this series, did you feel any pressure to do the follow up after writing that first book and having the good fanfare and the good reactions? How did it feel to go back to the drawing board writing this story?
It was a very interesting experience because I wasn't worried about it. Like I Sister Samurai is very much what it is, right? It's very unapologetically what it is. And I definitely wanted to keep that energy for the second book. It's unapologetically what it is. It's for, like a celebration of black women. It's a celebration of nerd culture. And that as long as like I'm passionate and just all of my like nerdiness oozes off the page unapologetically, I knew this book would be fine. My biggest concern with this book was deadlines, because this book is a summer book and I definitely wanted this book published in the summer to match the season that the book is set in. And so meeting that deadline, I think that was the struggle, just to make sure that you maintain the quality while still publishing, while still publishing the book. So my process obviously was very different this time around. With this process, I was able to bring in beta readers. I was able to bring in some writers that I trust, that they read it for me, and were kind of able to help me see some things that I missed. Because oftentimes, what I recommend to any writer is you write the book, you sit it down for 2 months, and then you pick it up again. Because you see so many mistakes and you see so many flaws after you've set it down to rest, and then you pick it back up. But with the deadline this time, I couldn't do that. And I'm just so grateful for the people around me that were able to be that fresh pair of eyes when I wasn't able to because of the deadline.
So within a lot of my writing friends, we're always talking about like deadlines and writing schedules. Some people have a word count per day. Some folks have a page count per day. Like, give us some of your strategies you use when it comes to making that deadline. What were some things you implemented?
Oh, that's a good question. One routine. I definitely like got up and wrote basically from morning to the afternoon. And in the afternoon, I tried to kind of take a brain rest break. And then one of the odd things that I do is I change rooms. So I might write in one room in the morning, and then I write in a different room in the afternoon. So that way, kind of like your brain is in a different environment, and in a way it kind of triggers it to be like, okay, reset. you know let's go. So switching rooms helps me. I don't know. I don't know if that helps a lot of people, but
I think That's one of the most unique tips I've ever heard on this show. Talking to plenty of authors, I've never heard that, but it makes sense to me. Just changing the environment does do something for your physiology and changing everything. It does help.
Yeah, if you can't get outside the house, go to a different like space in the house or space in the room. That kind of helps.
Now you mentioned inside the house. Do you always write at home or do you write in other places? Do you move around? Literally.
I tend to write at home, but that's because when you go outside, you're tempted to spend money. And I'm just like, you see things at Starbucks and things like that. I'm just like, no, you finished the book, Tatiana. So that just keeps me on pace, on task.
Yeah.
But it definitely writing kind of works different for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, but getting into that routine and getting your brain used to sitting down and writing helps because then your brain's kind of ready to go whenever it's like that time and stuff. So you can definitely kind of train your brain to write.
So when it comes to your writing routine and regimen, it sounds very, very on point. Do you have any suggestions on dealing with like writer's block? The person feels stuck, and how do I get over the hump? Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah. Um, so I didn't really have a lot of writer's block with this book, but I do have writer's block sometimes. And two things tend to help me out. One, again, sit that book down, rest it, because sometimes you come back to it and you see different things. Two, um, I'm a pantser, so I don't really outline beforehand. That's just a personal thing. I kind of get bored. Like once I know what the story is, in a way, I love and I enjoy discovering the story with the characters. So I am a pantser, but sometimes I get stuck, and then that's the moment where I go back to the outliners. Like I go back to okay, narrative structure. I go back to like plotting. Go back to like okay, where did this character arc go wrong? Where did this plot structure go wrong? So I kind of that's when I go into like the very technicalities of things. Like okay, where did things go astray? And so when I hit that writer's block, usually I've learned in my process I've gone wrong somewhere a couple paces back.
I like what you're talking about. I like what you're talking about. So back with this being a follow-up book, whenever you were writing the original Sister Samurai, did you already know in your mind it would be a series, or did it kind of just happen after the fact?
Yeah. Originally, when I first started writing Sister Samurai, it was going to be one book. Um, but there was one day where there was a book title that popped up in my head, and it's actually the book title for book four. And I was like, I need to write this book because only this series can pull off this title. And so I was like, I got to do it now. So after the fact, I was like, okay. So I decided that it was going to be a four-book series where kind of each book is set in a different season or inspired by a different season. So that means that yes, after the summer book, there will be a fall and a winter book. But yeah, sometimes those random inspirations, and I'm just like, I got to do it. It's too good not to.
So you have your beautiful book in your hand, I'm seeing. Could you please show my audience? When I first saw this book cover, I thought it was the best thing I ever saw in my life. Traditional published, indie published. It's a phenomenal cover. Could you please show us the cover of your
Sure.
book, please? Oh
No,
my
I've
God.
been like
Look how it
shaking it.
pops. Look how it pops, man. My first time seeing that on Instagram, I was like, so could you please tell us what went into the actual cover design process and how involved were you in that?
Yes. So one of the great things about being an indie author is that you commission from the cover artists themselves. So you are very heavily involved in what the cover looks like. Um, since I had the first cover, I definitely had an idea of what the second book was going to be. Like, because the first cover is very black and white with pops of pink. And I knew I wanted this to be black and white with pops of yellow and to show off all of the new characters in the book because the first book's a lone samurai, so second book, we got to have all the samurais on the cover. Um, so I worked with the artist, and the artist, his name is Felice Ortiz. He's just very talented, and definitely understood what I was going for right off the bat, and he gave me first several drafts. We kind of worked on certain things and certain elements, getting kind of the characters right, and some of the elements on the cover right. But and at the point, I actually worked on the cover after I finished writing the book. So there were some things that I brought from the book to the cover that I already knew was going to happen.
I love asking about book covers, man, because you know the old adage was you can't judge a book by its cover, and they said all those things back in the day. But we live in a time now where we have all this technology and other things at our disposal. Like there are some very incredible book covers out there in the world, man. And to go against all these books, your book needs to have a standout, pop out quality to it, man.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So would you imagine if you are part of a traditional published, I understand sometimes they have less ability to control what they're doing. Could you imagine being a part of something like that? Like,
Mm. I don't know. Like I honestly enjoy having a lot of control over the final product because there's a
mhm,
lot of kind of like cool little things that I can do as an indie author. So for example, in the book, I was able to include like the playlist and a gloss book. I was able to include like little character cards before each character in the book. And that's something I wouldn't have a lot of control over in traditional publishing. So I do enjoy like giving people like a full experience with the book from the music to the art to the way things are kind of laid out. And I really do take a lot of joy in that. So it would be difficult for me, I think, to give up control a little bit.
yeah, my friends and I debate traditional versus self pub all the time. It's a long going debate. I mean, it's a matter of choice, obviously, but like you're an incredibly creative person, it seems, very talented person. I can't imagine somebody putting a lot of restraints on what you can't do. Like, I know I wouldn't like that person. I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I haven't, like the option hasn't been on the table yet. But I do think that if it would ever be the case, it would probably be like something new for traditional publishing, like these series I would definitely keep for myself so I can make sure it's the what I envision.
Like, could you? I never want to spoil a fiction book. I never want to do that by accident. Could you please give the family a kind of a synopsis or a rundown of what the Return of Sister Samurai is, please?
Yes. So the first book in the series, we have Sistah Samurai. She is the last of her clan, the clan of Sistah Samurai. And they had been decimated because of an unfortunate event. So she's kind of that book is kind of about her journey on her journey home. But this book, we discover that there are two young trainees that never graduated from the academy. So they come searching her out to be trained and to become Sister Samurai. And so it's about kind of like these themes of mentorship, these themes of kind of women coming together in community and like figuring out how to work together and to grow and to thrive together.
Yes, yes. Thank you very, very much for that. I love that because we live in a time right now where we need our elders to give us the mentorship and pass the torch that they've been carrying for so long. And then as we climbing up, we have importance in ourselves to reach back to the ones behind us to always carry your process. So speak
Yeah,
about
yeah. And
the characters. I'm sorry.
oh, and it is, like interesting being at, I guess, my age, which is about like I'm about 33. And so like I have so many mentors ahead of me, but then I have so many younger girls and like younger siblings that are coming up behind me and like watching me. So it's very interesting like now that I'm in a position where I'm in the middle like of these very two groups. And I think that kind of helped those experience helped come into this book a little bit.
You mentioned your two shining stars in this book, the new stars, Kayla and Imani. Could you tell us a little bit about like the character development of these two people?
Sure. So I was very intentional to make sure that all of the characters had growth and had an arc throughout the story. And Kayla, she's definitely a complicated character. Like she definitely comes off with very kind of that kawaii Japanese culture, very like cheerful and optimistic. But you do learn that she definitely has made some mistakes in the past, and kind of believing in herself again is definitely her arc. Whereas Imani, she's had some kind of traumatic family history, and so kind of overcoming the kind of like the legacy and the kind of those inheritance that we get from our family, and kind of overcoming that and growing into our own person.
Yeah, sure, sure. So they are the mentees
Yes.
going to get trained to be Sister Samurai. Tell us
Yes.
about, you mentioned it a little while ago, the importance of mentorship, the importance in seeking out coaching and direction. Tell us about the importance of that in these characters.
Yes. Um, so the importance of coaching and the importance of menteeship. These like the girls here, they're not teenagers. I was very specifically wrote them to be kind of like early 20s, because y- at that age, I feel like you still don't really know what to do. Like you just become an adult, but you're like, am I an adult? And there's so many questions even at that age. And I really thought it was really important to show these young 20-year-old girls kind of what they can teach the older generation, but also what the older generation can teach them, and how they can carry those lessons forward as they continue to grow.
That's right. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about what does it take to be a good mentee. A lot of talkers out there about mentorship and coaching, but I don't think enough talkers out there about what does it take to be under somebody's tutelage and bring something to the table for them, not just a one-sided kind of equation, but where it's reciprocal and you feed
Yeah.
each other.
I do think there needs to be a foundation of trust. And kind of building that trust does take time, and it does take kind of like learning each other. So definitely at the beginning of this of the beginning of this book, like there definitely like is some it doesn't always click well, right? It takes time to kind of grow that trust. Because once you have trust, you have honesty, you're more willing to listen, you have patience, you have grace. Like there's a lot that you can do once you have that foundation. And I think just talking with the people, like the people I look up to, and my younger siblings, like like they won't tell you everything, they might not tell you everything, but that trust is important. Like if they don't trust you, then it's hard for them to come to you, and to come to you with their problems. So I really think that kind of trust as a foundation, and laying that is very important.
Yes, ma'am. And so that's a large part of parenthood as well, man. Back to this conversation, like
Yeah.
it take you having to implement that trust in your children. They come to you with anything. If you make them feel early, they can't come to you. So many important moments will happen that you won't be privy to because you haven't
Right.
built that foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about Sister Samurai herself, the main event, right? Because the
Yeah.
development and the progression, right? So she has these beautiful, wonderful twins, man. Let's talk about the twin aspect right quick. We had the movie Sinners just came out. We all love Sinners and the twins. Now we're not twins, we cousins, right? That's what they say. So,
Hey.
so, so, I know, right? So tell us about why the twins? Why the twin aspect?
So the twin aspect was definitely a personal thing. Um, because as I mentioned, especially with the first book, Sister Samurai is inspired by my mom. But growing up, I'm the older sister, and I had like two younger sisters follow after me. So the twins are really kind of an homage to my sisters.
Nah, I love that. That's hot. That's dope. Dope. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I love like putting little pieces of people and in my books, because I think it just makes it more relatable, it makes it more real. And like and there also like certain mannerisms I might have like reflected about different siblings. So to make them a little different, yeah.
So whenever they read it, do they ever catch on certain things like, oh, I know that, what that is, I know where that came from?
Well, they haven't read it yet, but my mom has read the first one, and so she finds it amusing.
So I want to dig in on Sister Samurai, like being a parent, going into motherhood. At first, it's just you. You're doing all these badass things, right? But now you got to be mindful of I got people depending on me. I got to get back home. I can't afford to go out and do certain things. How about that dichotomy with that with her? Now you have other people to depend on.
Right. Um, like in the first book, Sister Samurai always had people to depend on, because she did. It did reveal that she has a family at the end that that she fights for every day. But in the second book, this is expanded because it's not just about her family now. It's about kind of like her community and her legacy, like the legacy she wants to leave behind. So this is like her chance to really, like kind of figure out what she wants and like the trail that she wants to blaze for the people behind her. Um and and I think like as you get older you start thinking about that, right? Like you start thinking about what can I leave behind to, the people behind me, what can I do for them, what can I give to them, what can I provide for them. And I think that's definitely is where her mindset is now, like kind of seeing her community grow and wanting it to continue to grow. Like she definitely after, if anything happens to her, she definitely doesn't want to see this end. She wants to see it thrive.
Yeah, and speak about whenever you're like the leader, whenever you're the main person, it can be taxing. It can have wear and tear on your actual body, your well being. You have a lot of time away from the house. You do want to
Yeah.
have those moments of reprieve, but she's talking about I can just stay in for a little bit longer and have a little bit more time with the family. Like she talks about those things.
Yeah.
I thought those were very important details to have. Speak about the importance of that you put into the story for
Yeah.
her.
You know, it was really important because like throughout the fantasy genre, like there are some action heroes and action heroines. Um and what was important to me is that even though Sister Samurai, like she is action heroine. Like you can rely on her to get stuff done, like to get things done. She still has her vulnerabilities. She still has her insecurities. And, like many women, she has a family. And what that looks like as a leader in her community, as a fighter in that community, but still holding together this family unit as like so many women, especially Black women, have to do.
Yeah, I thought that was a very, very good touch to the story to show that part of her. That the home side, whenever
Yeah.
she's not wielding the sword, like what does it look like between her and her spouse and her baby talk and stuff like that. I thought that was a real good touch to the story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. So back to her being a badass action person. I love asking my fictional writers about fight scenes. What does it take to write a good fight scene? That's a very, very difficult thing to pull off.
Yeah, it is.
What's some of your suggestions or some of the things you could talk about writing these scenes?
Um, one thing I suggest is when you go into fight scenes, always root it in character. Um, for example, like Sister Monique, like her fight scene looks very different from like Kayla's fight scene, who's a mentee and who's a newbie. Um, they aren't going to fight the same way. And really consider like how character informs how someone fights. And because you can have like a lot of tension and a lot of stake with someone who is very skilled, like System Monique, or someone who is less skilled, like Kayla. So definitely consider like how character informs the story. Next, I would consider dynamic. Um, for example, you don't want to like always have things one note. Um, like for example, like real life fighting styles. There's like grappling fighting styles. There's kind of like more floor, more kick fighting styles. There's more ground fighting styles. And think about like all that different level from the ground, like to standing to the air. Like how those different levels kind of inform the different dynamics of a fight scene, and really like put yourself in that character's head. And I feel like that really helps to make the action immediate and and gives your action weight and gives your action tension. um so and don't and even for example, in action movies, like there are definitely times where you want to kind of like speed up a moment, but you also want to slow down on a beat, like and slow down on a like a moment. So a lot of the times these fight scenes are very like miniature um kind of beats and miniature fight scenes. And like this might sound weird, but like I always give the recommendation that fight scenes are actually very similar to like writing sex scenes in books because both are gratuitous and
I've
both
been saying this for years.
yeah,
I've been saying
yes.
it.
And you can like both of them you could cut them out and essentially like it's the same plot and the same narrative, but you got to figure out like how to make this moment important to the plot, how to make this moment like important to what we're like. It's if you have to cut your fight scene out, your readers should be confused on what's going on. Like it shouldn't be something where they can skip it and suddenly nothing happens. So like definitely consider like from in regards to how it advances, how the fight scene advances the plot, how the fight scene advances character or character growth, or how the fight scene gives new information. So it should be able to do either one of those things or all three.
So let me ask you a question. When you're writing the fight scene, do you actually like act it out? Like, do you try to imagine if this
there
left
is
punch someone like this, then I'm ducking like this, then I'm, you actually do that?
there is sometimes I've had to get up and do that, like kind of like complicated ones, and I'm thinking about like where I've I've had to do that for some of them, uh, but yeah.
Yeah, I had an author on a couple of weeks ago, Sister A. Lewis, and she has a lot of gunfights in her book. And she was
Mhm.
talking about literally like counting the steps in her house, like going down the steps. What would it be like? She was talking about doing all this
Oh
reenacting stuff, and that was pretty crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also another quick tip is I think sometimes a lot of writers don't consider distance, like um how tall someone is, how short someone is, like the distance between how you need where you need to be to hit somebody. Like spacing and distance in fights is very important. And a lot of I think writers don't take that into account when they're writing their scenes.
You know your stuff. You know your stuff. I've never heard anybody come on here talking about the distance and the range, and I've never heard that before, man. You
It's
know
so
your,
important.
especially in a book. I understand that in the actual fighting, but I consider that in writing, that's next level right there. I appreciate it. That was
Yeah,
dope.
yeah.
That was dope. That was dope. Yes. Tell us about some of the antagonists, right? So every good story has to have a great antagonist, right? They drive the story, in my opinion. Tell us about some of the antagonists in the Return of Sister Sam.
Yeah. So in the first book, I did introduce these demon characters. And while the demon characters, kind of like these demon creatures that kind of prey on the world, they exist in this book. It isn't the main antagonist. So in the main antagonist, because I wanted to give, like these girls kind of like definitely an opposing figure. So while we have the clan of the Samurai is now versus the alliance of Hotep warlords, and they kind of
Not the hotel.
and they definitely embody misogyny and kind of like this toxic masculinity, because the idea of it is, I mean, these women are just out here, they're just trying to do their thing, and then of course these men come and ruin their day. So it needs to be taken care of, and that is definitely kind of like the main and narrative thrust of the book till we get to the end.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, as a guy reading this story, even some of the dialogue, but then back to fight scenes, right? The dialogue happening during the fight scene and what they're talking about when they're fighting, I'm really seeing it like, wow, like That's these guys' major thing is this patriarchy and trying to control women and things like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Like I definitely wanted because I could have made the antagonist like another demon or something, but it just didn't feel personal. You know, like and I also hadn't read many books like that really kind of tackle like the everyday misogyny that women go through and women kind of, like have to confront on a daily basis. And I just wanted to give that an outlet. And give women that freedom to kind of be like, yeah, like I don't tolerate this shit. I'm not down with this.
No, that was a great touch. I definitely enjoyed reading that. So you mentioned earlier in the conversation about having a playlist. So if you can show that in your book one more time, if you will. But tell us about in the last book and this book, there's a playlist. Tell us about the importance of the playlist. And like, do you encourage your readers to use the playlist as they're reading the book? Would you encourage something like that?
Yes, I 100% encourage readers to read the book. One thing I say about the first book, like if you didn't go read the playlist, you've kind of missed some of the story. And the playlist is very intentional. All of the songs in the playlist feature Black female artists, some that are very well known, but also some that aren't very well known. And I do want people to listen to it and give them support and give them some coins, because we always want to support each other. Um, and like there are definitely those songs that are well known that you can like hear playing in your head as you go into the chapter, right? But there are some that aren't, and like there are some songs with like certain beats that like some of the action scenes are paced to. So, like because different action scenes have different pacing. So sometimes that requires different type of music, different songs. And like I'm always very thoughtful about how the playlist flows into the next one. Like if it didn't fit or it different didn't flow, I chose a different song. Like this is very intentional. So I definitely suggest please go listen to the playlist, and go, have fun with it, discover new artists, and see how, and there's a lot of some of the songs definitely foreshadow some things that happen in the book.
So let me ask, whenever you were literally writing some of this, were you playing some of those songs like as you were writing, or just like an after the fact kind of a thing?
Some of the songs I knew like immediately, like some of them I did. Some other songs, sometimes I feel like you kind of serendipity, right? Like you like wait for the right one to land, and you're like that's it. Um, but so it's kind of a mix of both. I usually, when I do my first draft, I usually write to music. And I think that kind of helps me to not to stay mired in editing and stuff like that, but to kind of like just get it on the page. So kind of to keep going. So I definitely first draft with music. I don't after once I start editing, like the second draft and the third draft and things. But so like there are definitely songs that I had kind of writing the book.
Wow, you just mentioned something very important. I talked about this a couple of days ago. You mentioned like while you're trying to write that first draft, just getting it out. And so many people, they're trying to write and edit and layout and format like as they're writing. And I tell people that's like 5 or 6 different people's jobs you're trying to do at one time. Like the writer's
Yeah.
just right. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Now
go
I
ahead.
do have some author friends that write that way, and that, like if it works for
Yeah.
you, it
Yeah,
works
I
for
mean,
you. But
yeah.
for me,
Yeah, just
like
right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So you have your own editorial service now. I want you to definitely big it up and plug it in right now. But tell us, like, why did you as an author say, you know what? I'm gonna start my own editorial service. And do you still use outside editors even though you are an editor yourself?
Yes, yes. So I definitely still use outside editors because it's important to know that there are different types of editing. So I primarily do developmental editing, but also in regards to other types of editing, there's copy editing, there's proofreading. Um, I'm not good at those. I will straight up say, like, I'm not good at like proofreading. And you know, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, so I definitely will go hire help for that. But I am very strong developmental editor, and the reason why I decided to do it is because actually a couple of years ago, about 2023 2023, I did work with helping develop with the company, helping to develop and edit and help people write their books. But I'm no longer with that company, and I had kind of focused on this, and so that was definitely something that I wanted to get back to. Because even like talking about mentorship and going back to mentorship, like sometimes like you need a teacher. And sometimes like there are resources out there, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. And one of the best things that you can do for yourself is to hire a developmental editor, because you learn so much about your writing. You learn so much about what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to further improve on that as you continue this journey. Um, so if you're looking for a developmental editor, I do editing. And that is the big kind of like the big ideas, right? It's the character art, it's the placing, it's the plotting. Like art is the structure of your it's the foundation and the structure of your book solid and good. So that is what I can help and I can assist you on. And my information about it is on my website.
You just read my mind. I was gonna say, tell them where they can find you to get this editing service. Because again, a lot of writers watch this show, so I want you definitely to understand. Please go to her site, go to her page, go to her links. She's definitely accessible. Hit in the DMs or whatever you got to do, and definitely holler at my sister on that editorial tip.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I want to make a little sidebar right quick on the editorial side. I find it amazing how many editors that are like amazing writers, like Toni Morrison. You can name some other
Mhm.
people. I saw a post a couple of days ago. They showed every book that Toni Morrison helped to edit, and
Oh,
I
wow.
want to get every book on that list, man. So tell me, why do you think these editors make great writers like this?
I think it's just kind of putting in the work and putting in the craft. At least in my case, I've been writing for a long time. And then even mentioning that process, like I do naturally pants a lot of things, but once I get stuck, that's when I start going into like the theories and start going into the structures and start going into like how can I diagnose things and make this work. So I've been breaking down books and breaking down stories for a long time. and once you just when you're a writer that's serious about your craft and you want to get better, that's what you need to do. Like do your homework, read books. Like go to listen to craft podcasts or go to workshops and go to classes sometimes. Like it's work. You got to put the work in if you want to like come out with them skills.
You said something that's important. It might sound elementary, but like we gotta say it out loud about reading books. When I meet writers that don't really read books, it's like how do you play a sport and like not watch said sport? I never understood that. Oh no, I barely ever read books. I just like how? I mean, unless you're that gifted, maybe, but like I don't know.
Yeah, like reading books is definitely one of the most free resources that you can do to level up your writing skills, because the library is there. um and you can check out books and you can read books in your genre, read books that are not in your genre, read books adjacent to your genre. Even sometimes just important knowing like what's popular right now like in your genre, like how these tropes are used and how these tropes are subverted. Like you learn a lot through reading.
So I see your wonderful bookshelf behind you. We love a good stack. So you mentioned some of your writing practices earlier. What are some of your reading practices? If you're doing all this writing, you're doing editorial services. What is your reading practices looking like these days?
Ah, so sad, honestly. Like it as an indie author, it is difficult to write and it's difficult to market and it's difficult to do all the things. Truly is. So getting my reading in is dedication. Like I try to do like the Goodreads goals and the Goodreads challenges or like the Storygraph challenges and hit a goal a day. I just finished a book yesterday. I was like, that's my motivation. Like after I get out this book release, I'm gonna go and pick up a book. I'm gonna go read a book. Like just sit down. And so sometimes that's helpful too, especially like with social media. Everything's going, like everything's going crazy. Everything's chaotic, and just like focusing on a book and just kind of like silencing everything out. It's just a nice break. It's nice.
I totally agree with escapism. I love it. I'm down for it, right? So your book, Sister Samurai, is deeply rooted in Japanese culture, from the names to the customs, and is layered and intentional. How much of research did you have to do to execute that in the book? And in the book, I saw you have an actual like a glossary, and you're showing different items and the Japanese names. I love you did that. Tell us about that process of researching that.
Sure. So I grew up watching anime, but I went to college for international studies with a specialization in Asian studies and also did Japanese. I studied abroad in Japan and was also a history minor as well. So I've done quite a bit of academic research about Japan and about Japanese culture. Um, so I knew a lot of this going in. And there were a couple things that I needed to go and kind of brush up on. Um, but I also grew up watching samurai films. I grew up watching a lot of things that kind of came out of Japan because you know, Japanese media, it has its own storytelling style. It has its own tropes and it has its own very specific things to like its kind of storytelling culture. And so that is also one thing that I do highly recommend is read outside of Western literature. Like read African literature, read Chinese, Korean, read like Eastern European, like because what you learn is that storytelling styles can be so different and can vary so widely. And you kind of start learning like what the rules are and then like how you can break them. So I really do recommend kind of just like reading widely. But yes, like so I did have a lot of knowledge going into it. One of the things that I definitely didn't need to research was a lot of the kanji, which is one of the Japanese alphabets. There's some that I knew, but I was also very rusty, and so like, but also having studied Japanese, I knew the resources and where to go and to find the answers that I'm looking for. um, but I'm also a big history nerd. I love history.
Yes, yes. And let's go into that, right? Let's talk about magic systems and the talisman. So in both of your book, magic plays a major role. The characters have these powers and they channel energy using these talismans. Tell us about the talisman and like why did you use that particular medium to do these powers?
Yes. So it definitely is. I established this magic system in the first book, and one of one of the reasons why I did it is because, like I said, like we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And while I did a lot of studying in college, to be honest, I was not very good at Japanese. Like it was definitely a effort to learn Japanese. And so being able to come back in this and say, "Ha, this is what I've learned." Like, and to bring this into this and be like, "This is what I learned. This is what all these 3 years has amounted to." Just to be like, "Ha." So, like just to be able to feel like I conquered that in some way. And but you learn a little bit more, and sometimes, like for example, I did go live in Korea for a year, and like I learned that I'm a person that takes in languages much easier if I'm in the environment and if I can read it, where I struggled more at Japan because one, I don't have very good hearing. So sometimes like especially audible and hearing, especially in classrooms, makes it much more difficult. So, sometimes you grow up and you learn, sometimes it's the way that you were taught. So, but just going back and like taking and just kind of reclaiming that initial love that I have for Japanese and why I wanted to learn in the first place. And I think it definitely has started me back on the journey of increasing my vocabulary, increasing my kanji knowledge. And yeah, so it's been a journey that's been very important to me. But that is why the magic system is based on these like talismans where you use the kanji, the alphabet that in Japanese. Um, and depending on how many stroke counts, is dependent on how much ink is consumed, and that is how you kind of like activate these spells. The second book does like add some kind of fun things into the magic system because it introduces these demon drops. So whenever demons are vanquished, sometimes it leaves things in this world from other worlds. And so you get to see like how kind of like these interesting demon drops interact with this magic system and how they can be used together.
Let me ask you this question. With the talisman, do they reflect anything symbolic in our real world, like spiritual items, cultural heirlooms, or ancestral energy?
Yes, yes. So the talismans do mimic the kind of like the Shinto talismans. And it is kind of a symbol and an item that's very important in Shintoism. So and just kind of not just the religion, but just kind of like everyday life, kind of like just good luck talismans and kind of just seeking protection. And that's also something that I kind of a symbol that I wanted to bring into the story, and just the way that like writing and like can lead to protection and lead to like invoking good luck and invoking spirituality.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So, from your first book, and now this book just came out recently, and I'm seeing people posting their books, they're posting their items, everybody's so excited. What has been some of the feedback from Black women when it comes to seeing these badass characters and the empowerment and everything that they're doing? What's some of the feedback you've been getting thus far?
Aw, yeah. I mean, like, I definitely one of the things I wanted to do, and I kind of came into this is, like, I wanted to write because we don't have a lot of books like this. Like, I wanted to write a book with like four very different Black women, but show them being heroic in their own ways. And so it was very fun to like see all of the responses and the reviews, like, oh, which character was their favorite and which character that they related to the most. And it's been wild. It's been wildly different. Like people have enjoyed several different characters, but some people have been like, "Oh, this one was so annoying." But I love writing complicated characters. Um, so just to like see their responses to the characters and kind of just to see like how it relates to them, like a lot of especially the Black women anime nerds, because there's a lot of anime Easter eggs in this, and so they're just like, Tatiana, like I see what you're doing. So
Mhm.
like so that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
to see that joy has been amazing.
Has any response surprised you or hit you emotionally in an unexpected way?
Um, yes, there was one beta reader feedback that I had, and like after her response and after her feedback, she had said, Tatiana, like you are the author I wish I had growing up. And I was just like, oh, I mean, I'm glad I can be here now.
Yeah. I mean, I have a daughter myself. She made 18 recently. I wish that she would have had some of these books through her time coming through junior high, high school. Like, we do need to
Yeah.
see more figures like this and more representation like this and these
Yes.
themes that you tackle.
Yeah, and we are getting like more representation in the space, but I still feel sometimes, especially in the fantasy genre, we're limited in what that representation looks like. So I just want like more range, like just more
Yeah,
different types of stories that we are the central character and that we are the
yeah.
center of this narrative.
I know a young lady, her daughter's in high school right now, I think. And like she said she wants to read more books, but she was telling her mom, like, of course, Harry Potter and Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and all these things, which is great. But she was like, she want more things that reflect like her and her culture, herself.
Yeah, yeah. And and that was also something that was very kind of like trending in fantasy for a while, which is very like heavily African inspired stories. And African inspired stories are really important. I really enjoy reading them, but there just wasn't that celebration of Black culture, like African American culture. And that's something that I really wanted to bring into this series because it's just like, well, I want my culture to be celebrated too. Like I want it to be seen too. And so you didn't really see that in fantasy. And like you do get the naysayers who are like, "Oh, well, it's African American, like it's fantasy's medieval culture, or like it's historical. Like how does this, like this doesn't make sense, or how does this, like here's an example how it can be done." Like, or like different ways that it can be done. Like we can have portal
Yeah,
fantasies. We can do like so many different type of things
yeah.
to like make sure that we feel represented in this genre.
Yes, yes, yes. And speak about the anime and the manga and things like it's been a real explosion the past 5 or 10 years here in the US. Like it's really Walmart, you name a place you go to, is heavily in there now more than 10 years ago. So talk about the
Yeah.
explosion of that and the interest in that is taking off lately.
Yeah, like growing up, it definitely had been very niche. Like, it's like it was like embarrassing or kind of like shameful, like to talk about, like, oh, like you're a nerd and things like that. But I honestly feel that with especially how big online spaces have come, where you do see these communities forming and these fandoms forming, where people like fans, even the most niches anime, the most niches manga that you can think of, can find each other and can connect with each other. And suddenly, like there's joy in this unapologetic of, we love this and we don't care what anyone says about it, right? And I think like that has really kind of just helped things kind of explode more. And then when we start digging into like specifically blurred culture, like within the past 5 years, this has like exploded. Like we had like DreamCon last month with Megan Thee Stallion, and we have like more big icons. We have even like more black manga artists like coming onto the scene. Like there's a wave happening right now, and it's very exciting.
And we see guys like Michael B. Jordan talk
Yes.
about his last Creed movie. A lot of the fight scenes were inspired by various
Yes.
anime, and even
Yeah, and he was talking about
Ryan
Killmonger's armor was inspired by Vegeta.
Vegeta, right, right, right. Ryan Coogler and these guys, they get inspired by anime. So we are seeing that mainstream shift.
Yeah, yeah, and they were talking like just a couple of weeks ago about maybe doing an animated movie. Um, so yes, I'm excited. I'm excited for this space and hopefully what it will bring.
Yeah. Throughout publishing this book, I noticed you were doing this string of videos on Instagram Live, inspiring, motivating, and giving writers real important information about the publishing process and how to promote, how to market. Tell me why you started doing these videos.
One of the reasons why I started doing the videos is just as an indie author, um, I there's so many different social medias, right? And kind of the adage is, find one that you enjoy, find one that you like, find one that you'll stick with and be consistent with it, right? um that does prove true. And I already have a very strong presence on IG and a very strong presence on Threads. And just as an indie author, I was like, okay, I'm kind of ready to branch out. I want to try something different. I want to try some new things, because, that's what marketing as indie author is trying new things. So, like seeing what happens. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of like do like a kind of behind the scenes with publishing, because sometimes with publishing, things seem so opaque, right? Like, and I kind of want to make the process more transparent. So that's why I started to doing the videos, kind of leading up to Return of Sistah Samurai. I plan to continue to do the videos, because I did, like I did see like very positive responses to them. So yeah, it's just really just being an indie author and just being like a small business owner, and just like taking chances with marketing and just seeing what works.
Yeah, I know enough. My first book was like 8, 9 years ago. I know how many things that I wasn't aware of going into being a writer. All I knew is I want to write this thing. I
Yeah.
had no idea of all of these nuances and details, and there's so much in the process that you should get educated on first. I would advise somebody. So videos like your videos are very. I wish I had those videos 9 years ago.
Yeah, there's so much to learn. Like even now, kind of probably in the next couple of weeks, I want to talk about marketing, specifically sequels, because you don't see a lot of information about sequels and like how to market them and how to promote them. And just kind of sharing some of the things that I've learned because I'm on my second sequel now. I've learned so much from the first one that I've applied to this one. So kind of just that learning curve because I want us all to do great. I want us all to flourish. I want us all to do amazing. And sometimes learning from my mistakes will hopefully put you further in front of, further closer to the finish line than I was when I started.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I saw on your page you posted a list of your future projects. And I mean a list. Could you tell us like any of this information? Could you share with us some of the things you have rolling out pretty soon to look out for you?
Sure. So two two of the things on the list was I am collaborating with two different book boxes and to do a special edition of my books. One of them has already been announced with Satisfaction with my first book, Bones of the Wind. So that special edition is coming out. There is another one that is yes. There is another one that is not public and not announced yet, but there is a special edition of a book coming. um, later this year. In addition, my short story that was first published by Fire magazine was selected as part of Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy 2025. So that anthology is going to be published at the end of October or in October. I do have another writing project, um, but thinking about timelines and thinking about schedules, the next novel that I'm writing, I will finish it this year, but I don't think it'll be published until next year. But that book is called, oh, I haven't even said the title of it yet. But I'll say the title here. So that
Yes, the
book,
exclusive. Exclusive.
so
Breaking news.
the name of that book is going to be called The Leviathan of the Lambent Sea. And it is going to be kind of connected to my previous duology and previous series. It's going to be set in that same world where, of course, we have a badass black girl on a monster hunt. So she's out here trying to slay a leviathan, and that is the novel that I'm currently working on.
So your Sister Samurai series, you mentioned earlier being a 4-part series.
Right.
Are you already writing a part three? Is it already written? Or you like haven't even
Right.
started yet?
I have not started it yet. The novel that I'm currently working on, I am on draft 3, so I'm almost finished with it. Like I'm almost done with that. So once I'm done with the novel, I'll start working on both book 3 and 4 because I want to work on them simultaneously. Um,
Whoa, simultaneous. Talk about that process. I've never heard about that. I mean, I've seen it. I've never heard about it. How do you imagine doing a duel?
Well, because working on both book 3 and 4 is, chronological. So the idea is, um, because this book is a lot thicker than the first book. The first book was a novella, so this is actually going to be the biggest book in the series. And the reason why this is the biggest book in the series because it has 4 characters. So the next book is going to have 3 characters, and next book is going to have 2 characters. So because of the less POVs, it's gonna be shorter. Yeah. So because it's gonna be shorter, honestly, those 3, 4 will probably be the same size as this one. So it'll be manageable.
Got you, man. Thank you very, very much for saying yes to come back. I tell all of my guests, I love returning guests. It's always so fun for me. And I was blessed to be one of your beta readers on the project. Thanks for saying yes to that as well. I love being the beta.
Aw,
Anybody
great.
watching this, tell people what makes a great beta.
Ooh. Um, communic I wanna say communication. Um, so there's some times where, like, beta readers will read and they get so caught up in the story that they kind of forget everything, which is fine. But what's very helpful to a writer is kind of your beta reader feedback and your reactions. Like, I want to know what your reactions are as a reader. So, for example, does something make you laugh? LOL, let me know. Or was something was something kind of like awkward or something, like let me know. So just remembering to like give your comments, and it doesn't have to be like any like writer crafting feedback, like, oh, the pacing is too slow, oh, none of that, like just your reader feedback, just like how you naturally react to the story as you read. Those make awesome beta readers.
Yeah, we were speaking about being a good mentee earlier, but I think understanding what's a good beta reader is important to talk about publicly as well, because a lot of us love to volunteer to beta, and it's very cool to do, but understanding what a writer actually needs back to be effective, whole different conversations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's also why I made sure to, because I did get quite a few beta readers who this was their first time. So I did make sure to like have like a little infographic of like kind of what I was looking for and like how, so, just to be helpful and so that, they know what to do.
Well, if you need any betas in your future projects, always holler at your boy. I am always down to give feedback much as I can. And again, thank you very much for coming to the show. Thanks for all my people that's watching right now. Those watching on YouTube later on, thanks for tuning in. Leave comments. I try to always reply back as fast as I can. Thank you very, very much. This is your Sean P. Experience.